It was November 2020, during a job I took in downtown Toronto when a building needed emergency lighting repaired in its underground parking garage. I was doing contract electrical work at a residential tower near Yonge Street and Bloor, the kind of place where everything looked clean upstairs, but the lower levels always had a different smell: old concrete, car exhaust, and the damp air that came in whenever someone opened the garage door. The building manager, a guy named Colin, was supposed to meet me that night because the lights had been failing for weeks. He was waiting near the elevator lobby when I arrived with my tool bag. "You're the lighting guy, right?" he asked. I nodded. "Good. I don't want anyone wandering around down there alone. The cameras have been acting strange, and tenants are already complaining about the dark." That last part sounded normal enough. A lot of buildings had problems in 2020. Fewer staff were around, repairs were delayed, and people were noticing every small issue because everyone was spending more time at home. The parking garage was 3 levels underground. The emergency lights were along the walls, above the parking spots, and beside the elevator doors. My job was simple: replace the dead fixtures, test the backup power, and leave. Colin walked with me for the first 20 minutes. He kept looking at the ceiling and checking his phone. "You'll have access to the electrical room," he said. "Just don't touch the security cabinet." I looked over. "What security cabinet?" He pointed at a gray metal box near the elevator. "That one. Old system, not your problem." I remember thinking that was a weird thing to say because I had no reason to open random boxes. I was there to fix lights, not inspect the building. The first hour went by without anything unusual. I replaced 2 fixtures on level P2. The buzzing from the broken lights stopped. My gloves picked up dust from the old covers, and every time I pulled a fixture down, tiny pieces of concrete fell onto my jacket. Around 11:30, Colin left to check something upstairs. He said he would be back before I finished. I was working near the elevator bank on P3 when I noticed one of the lights above the doors wasn't connected like the others. The wiring was newer, cleaner. It bothered me because whoever installed it had done a better job than the rest of the garage. I removed the cover. Behind the emergency light was a small black camera. At first I thought it belonged to the building. Security cameras were everywhere. But this one was pointed directly at the elevator doors, not the parking area. It was hidden inside the light housing, and the cable disappeared into the wall. I took a picture with my phone and looked closer. There was a small plastic label stuck to the wire. It didn't have the building's name on it. I called Colin. He answered after several rings. "Everything okay?" "I found a camera behind one of the lights." There was a pause. "Which one?" "The elevator on P3. Another pause. Then he said, "Don't unplug it." That was the first thing he said. Not, "What camera?" Not, "Are you sure?" Just, "Don't unplug it." I stepped away from the wall. "Why?" "It's probably from the previous contractor. They installed some temporary equipment when the system was being upgraded." I looked at the camera again. Why would a contractor hide it inside an emergency light? "I'll come down." He hung up. I stood there for a while, listening to the ventilation fans above me. The garage was almost empty. A few cars were parked on P3, and every sound carried farther than it should have. A shopping cart somewhere near the ramp rolled a few inches and stopped. I packed my tools and waited. Colin came down about 10 minutes later. He was walking faster than before. "Show me." I pointed at the light. He didn't look surprised. That bothered me more than the camera. He grabbed the cover and pulled it back. "See? Old equipment." "You knew it was there?" "No, I knew there were old things in this building." He said it quickly, then looked away. The camera was not the only thing behind the light. There was a small gap in the wall where someone had pushed a plastic folder. I noticed it because Colin moved his hand away from that exact spot. I reached for it. He grabbed my wrist. "Don't." It wasn't hard enough to hurt me, but it was fast. "What is that?" "Nothing important." I pulled my hand back. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then Colin took the folder himself. "It's probably garbage." He opened it. Inside was a notebook, not a maintenance record, not a contractor report, a list. The pages had apartment numbers, dates, and times. Some lines had notes beside them. Back 620, alone, works late, P3 spot. There were names written beside some apartments, but I only noticed first names. Several entries had circles around them. Most of those circled entries were women living alone. Colin closed the notebook. I need to take this upstairs. I stared at him. Why? Because it's evidence. Then call the police. He looked annoyed. You're making this bigger than it is. That sentence stuck with me because I wasn't the one who found a hidden camera and a list of tenants. I was just the guy changing bulbs. I told him I needed to finish my work report before leaving. He didn't like that, but he walked away with the notebook. I waited until he disappeared around the corner. Then I followed. Not close enough for him to notice. Just enough to see where he went. He didn't go upstairs. He went toward the security room. The door was slightly open. I had been in that hallway earlier. The security room was supposed to be locked. I stopped outside and heard Colin talking to someone. I couldn't make out the words at first. Then I heard another voice. A man. Where is it? Colin said, I have it. The other guy said something I couldn't hear. I moved closer. The security monitor lights were glowing through the door gap. I saw a person standing inside. A man wearing a dark jacket. He wasn't wearing a building uniform. Colin noticed the shadow under the door. He opened it. We both froze. You're still here? He asked. I looked past him. The man inside was already walking toward the back exit. Who was that? Colin didn't answer. I grabbed my tool bag and headed for the elevator. He followed me. Wait. I kept walking. Listen, this is not what you think. I pressed the elevator button. Then tell me what it is. He didn't. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. Before the doors closed, Colin said, Forget the notebook. I looked at him. Why? Because you don't want to be involved. I left. Outside, the cold air hit me immediately. My van was parked across from the entrance. I sat inside for a minute without starting it. I knew I had to keep proof. I had taken pictures of 2 pages before Colin left with the notebook. Not the whole thing, just enough. I drove home and saved the pictures in 3 places. The next morning I called the building office. Nobody answered. I tried again later. Still nothing. That afternoon I saw a news post about the building. It wasn't much. It said Colin had been found dead in his car in the underground garage. The article said police were investigating. I called the number listed for the building management. A woman answered. When I asked about Colin, she went quiet. Then she said, Colin hasn't worked here since October. I thought she was mistaken. I told her I met him the night before. She said, there was no manager named Colin on staff. I checked the pictures I had saved. The notebook pages were still there, but the photos of the camera were gone. I know that sounds impossible, but my phone gallery had a gap. The timestamps jumped from the picture of the hallway to a picture of my toolbox. The building's parking cameras were also missing footage from that night. A few days later, I went back to get my equipment. I didn't go alone. The new manager let me enter during the day. The camera behind the light was gone. The wall had been repaired. Everything looked normal. When I got to my van, I noticed a folded piece of paper under the windshield wiper. It was 1 page from the notebook. My apartment number was written at the top. I never gave that building my home address. I kept the page and left. The next week, I was driving past the area near Bloor when I noticed a dark car behind me with its headlights off. It stayed behind me through 2 turns. I didn't want to go home. I pulled into a parking area, killed my lights, and waited. The car drove past slowly. I left through another exit and went straight to a busy street. I still had my old work phone in my jacket. The one connected to the building job. I had no idea if anyone could track it, but I wasn't going to find out. The next night, I went near a loading area behind a warehouse. A delivery truck was leaving, and I tossed the phone into the open back. The truck pulled away. The dark car followed it. I stood between 2 concrete columns until both vehicles were gone. I never reported everything under my real information. I gave the pictures to someone who knew where to send them. The last thing I heard about the building was that the parking garage cameras were still offline from that night. Nobody ever explained why the notebook was there. Nobody explained who the man in the security room was. And I still have the page with my apartment number sitting in a drawer because throwing it away feels like the wrong move. I had a dead patient in the car and a night orderly named Reggie beside me when the freight elevator stopped on a floor that didn't exist. It was July 2006 in an old hospital building near Tulane Avenue in New Orleans. The main complex was running again after Katrina, but the oldest wing still had boarded windows and water stains halfway up the walls. When it rained, the lower halls smelled like wet plaster. I worked nights moving linen carts, oxygen tanks, meal bins, and bodies between the floors. The freight elevator had a folding inner gate and outer doors you pulled shut by hand. The panel showed B, 1 through 6, and R. Nothing else. Reggie had been on nights for years. He wore his scrub top untucked and kept a red bandana in his back pocket. He knew which doors stuck and which nurses would sign a transfer sheet without reading it. He didn't talk much. That night, we had picked up a covered gurney from 4. The tag said basement holding room. I pressed B. The car went down, slowed, then stopped with a hard bump. The floor indicator went blank. Power dip? I asked. Reggie stared at the doors. Hold the button. I am. The motor was dead. Yellow light showed through the seam. I heard wheels outside and men speaking too low to understand. Then someone tapped twice on the metal. Reggie grabbed my wrist. Don't open it. I laughed because I thought he was messing with me. He tightened his grip. Don't pull that latch, he said. A few seconds later, the elevator dropped an inch, the motor caught, and we continued to the basement. Reggie rolled the gurney out and acted like nothing had happened. I asked what floor that was. There isn't one. He kept walking. I figured it was an old maintenance landing between floors. Hospitals have pipe levels and sealed service areas. That explanation worked until the same thing happened 2 nights later. I was alone with a cart of clean sheets, going from the basement to 5. The car stopped above 2. The indicator went blank. I didn't touch the latch. The outer doors were misaligned, leaving a gap about half an inch wide. I leaned toward the inner gate and saw a corridor with old beige tile. Brown water damage ran along the ceiling. 3 gurneys were parked against the wall. Each held someone in a hospital gown with a white cloth bag tied over the head. Nobody moved. A man in dark blue scrubs pushed another gurney past the gap. Behind him walked a man in tan work pants and a gray polo. The smell coming through was strong bleach mixed with cigarette smoke. The man in gray said, "This one's supposed to be downstairs already." The elevator jerked and went up. On 5, I left the sheets with a nurse named Carissa and asked about a service floor between 2 and 3. Not anymore, she said. I asked what that meant. She looked toward the elevators before answering. The old wing had a mechanical level from before a renovation. It was sealed after the storm. The stairwell door had been welded shut. Why would the elevator stop there? It shouldn't. Maintenance at night was a big, older guy called Polk. His office was near the loading dock with a box fan in the window and a Saints schedule over his desk. When I told him what I saw, he stopped writing. Which elevator? The freight. That car slips contacts. I saw people. You saw pipes through the seam. I know what a gurney looks like. Polk folded the work order he had been filling out and put it in his pocket. Don't put your face near old elevator doors. That's how you lose an eye. The next night, Reggie found me behind the kitchen drinking a warm Coke. He asked what I had seen. I told him. You opened it? No. Good. When it stops there, don't open the doors all the way. Don't call out. Hold the floor button until it moves. Who are those people? I don't know. You do. He checked the hall. I know enough to keep my job. I said I was going to security. Reggie looked tired. Security is part of the building. The security room was behind admitting. Camera feeds came in on old CRT monitors. The freight elevator had a camera in the top corner, and the service halls had cameras too. I waited until Reggie went upstairs, then asked the guard, Leon, to show me the recording from the night before. Leon paused Rush Hour 2 on a portable DVD player. Why? Door problem. Polk wants the time. It was a bad lie. Polk never wanted anything at 2 in the morning. Leon reached for the phone. I'll call him. I left. At about 4, Reggie met me near the laundry chute and held out an envelope. It contained $400 in 20s. That covers what you saw, he said. From who? Take it and stop asking. I asked if the people on the gurneys were dead. I don't know, and you don't either. One bill had a dark thumbprint on the corner. Grease, maybe. I took the money. I'm not proud of it. $400 was almost half my rent, and my truck needed a water pump. I figured Reggie was hiding stolen supplies or unrecorded transfers. The hospital was still a mess after the storm. Files were missing. Departments worked out of temporary rooms. There were plenty of explanations that didn't involve people disappearing. For several shifts, the elevator ran normally. Then a patient named Denise vanished from 5. I had moved her twice for imaging. She was in her 60s, with short, silver hair, and kept a folded Times-Picayune on her blanket. Monday night, she was in room 517. Tuesday morning, the bed was empty. Carissa said Denise had been transferred. Where? She checked the chart. It doesn't say. That afternoon, Denise's nephew came to the lobby asking for her. I heard him arguing with admitting as I left. They said there was no current patient under that name. He carried a yellow folder of paperwork and still had yesterday's visitor sticker on his shirt. I gave him the name of the old building and told him to ask for transfer records. He asked who I was. I said I moved patients at night and walked out. When I returned that evening, Reggie was waiting inside the freight elevator with another envelope. 700, he said. For what? You talked to somebody. I looked at the camera. Its red light was on. Was Denise on that floor? His jaw tightened. I took the money again, but that was when I decided to get proof. The camera system stored recent footage on digital units in security and copied older footage to tapes. Leon kept the tapes in a cabinet. The key hung under the desk on a nail. I had watched him grab it before. For 1 week, I copied everything I could. I brought Leon food from a 24-hour place on Canal. Around 3, he usually took a long bathroom break and smoked by the ambulance bay. While he was gone, I unlocked the cabinet and pulled tapes for the freight elevator and service halls. There was a VCR in an unused education room on 2. I copied sections onto blank Sony tapes from Walgreens. Most of the footage was normal. Then I found the missing floor. The elevator camera showed the car stopping while the floor display stayed blank. The time code jumped ahead 6 or 7 minutes, but the picture continued. Reggie appeared during 3 stops. Once he opened the doors about a foot and let 2 men pull out an empty gurney. Another time they pushed in a patient with a cloth bag over his head. The patient moved one hand. Reggie held his shoulder until the doors closed. The service hall cameras never showed those men entering from a regular floor. On the 4th tape, I saw Denise. She was in a wheelchair near the loading dock at 2:18 a.m. The man in the gray polo pushed her past the linen room. Her hands were tied together with gauze. She kept turning toward the camera. The next feed showed the freight elevator opening even though the panel outside stayed dark. Reggie stepped out and helped move her inside. I stopped the tape. The VCR fan clicked in the quiet room. The door handle moved behind me. I shut off the TV and slid the tape into my waistband. Someone pushed the door hard enough to rattle the latch. There was no second exit. "Who's in there?" Leon called. I opened the door before he could use his key. He looked at the dark TV, then the VCR. "What are you doing?" "Looking for a training tape." "At 4 in the morning?" I shrugged. "Slow night." Leon stepped closer. I thought he was going to search me. Instead, he looked down the hall and spoke quietly. "You need to quit tonight." Then he walked away. I finished my shift. At sunrise, I put the copied tapes in a plastic grocery bag and drove to a motel on Airline Highway. Denise's nephew had written his phone number on one of the papers he carried. I remembered most of it and got the last digits through directory assistance. His name was Curtis. We met that afternoon at a diner in Metairie. I gave him the bag and told him to make copies before showing anyone. The owner let us use an old TV in the back office. When Denise appeared on the screen, Curtis sat down and watched the rest without speaking. I left New Orleans that night. A friend in Birmingham let me sleep on his couch until I found warehouse work. I changed my number and sold the truck. Months later, Curtis called my friend and left a message. The hospital had closed the old building because inspectors found hurricane damage. Nobody publicly mentioned the footage. Reggie never contacted me. 2 years later, I was living outside Huntsville in a rented 1-story house with blue shutters. I came home from work and found a plain white envelope inside the screen door. No stamp, no name. Inside was a photograph of my house taken from across the street. Behind it was $700 in 20s. It was July 2019, during a beauty contest weekend at a hotel near the boardwalk in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I was there as a journalist covering the event, and I almost left before the worst part happened. The contest was for adult performers, and the hotel had turned one of its ballrooms into a temporary stage. There were cameras, makeup stations, sponsors with little booths near the entrance, and a crowd that kept moving between the casino floor and the event area. I had covered entertainment events before, but this one had a strange mix of people. Some were serious about their careers, some were there because they liked the attention, and some were just curious. I was assigned to write profiles of a few contestants. I had a small recorder, my phone, and a press badge hanging from my neck. The organizers gave us access to the backstage hallway, which was behind the ballroom and connected to a row of dressing rooms. That evening, around 8, I was talking with a contestant named Mia near the makeup mirrors. She was nervous because she was going on stage soon. She kept checking her hair and asking if the lighting made her look tired. Honestly, I think everyone looks worse under these lights, I told her. She laughed and looked at the ceiling. The room smelled like hairspray and perfume. The floor was covered with loose pieces of glitter from dresses people had tried on earlier. A portable fan in the corner pushed warm air around but did not cool anything. A judge named Cole had been walking around backstage most of the night. He was one of the people deciding the final scores. He acted friendly when cameras were nearby, but I noticed some of the contestants stopped talking when he came close. At first, I thought it was just normal tension. Competitions make people nervous. Everyone wants to impress the judges. That was the explanation I gave myself when I saw Mia quickly put her phone away after Cole approached her. Later, one of the organizers told me Cole had been inviting contestants to private meetings after the event. A few had refused. She said it quietly, like she was hoping nobody else heard. "Is that allowed?" I asked. She shrugged. "I don't know. People are scared of making a problem." I wrote a note about it, but did not think much would come from it. I was there to report on the contest, not investigate backstage drama. About an hour later, I went looking for Mia because I wanted a quick quote before the final round. Her dressing room door was partly open. I knocked. No answer. Inside, Mia was sitting on the floor beside the mirror. She was unconscious. Her shoes were still on, and one of her earrings was lying near her hand. There was a half-open bottle of water on the table. I called for help. A staff member ran in and immediately grabbed a radio. "Medical to dressing room 3. People started gathering in the hallway. Someone covered the doorway and told everyone to move back. I stayed outside, trying to understand what had happened. Then I heard Cole. He was standing farther down the hall, speaking to 2 event workers. "Remove her from the lineup," he said. "We need to announce that Mia is out." I looked at him because the timing felt wrong. She had just been found. Nobody knew what was wrong yet. One of the workers said, "Shouldn't we wait?" Cole looked annoyed. "No, we have a schedule." That was the moment I took out my phone. I started recording. I did not point it at Mia. I filmed the hallway, Cole, and the people around him. I wanted a record of what was being said. Cole noticed. "You can't record backstage," he said. "I can record what I'm hearing," I replied. He walked toward me. "Give me the phone." I stepped away and went toward the ballroom entrance. The noise from the audience was getting louder. Music was playing. People were laughing because they had no idea what was happening behind the curtain. I thought security would step in. Instead, one of the workers near the stage looked at Cole and waited for instructions. That bothered me more than him being angry. I moved closer to the side of the stage and kept filming. I opened a live stream on my phone. I was not sure why. Maybe I thought if something happened, there would at least be proof somewhere else. The ballroom lights suddenly went out. For a second, everyone thought it was a technical issue. The music stopped. The audience started talking. Then I heard Cole behind the curtain. "Where are they?" A staff member answered. "Who?" "The girl's still backstage." The emergency lights turned on, leaving the room dim and red. People in the audience began standing up, trying to see what was happening. I was near the edge of the stage when I saw Cole walking through the backstage entrance. He was no longer smiling. He was checking the dressing rooms one by one. A contestant named Jenna came out of a room and froze when she saw him. "Cole, what are you doing?" He raised his hand. "Relax. I just need to talk." She looked at me. That was enough. I stepped between them and lifted my phone higher. "You are on camera." Cole stopped. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then he walked away toward the hallway. I followed from a distance while still streaming. The screen on my phone showed hundreds of viewers joining. Some people in the audience noticed and started watching the stream on their own phones. The organizers finally realized what was happening. They started asking people to leave the backstage area, but it was too late. The crowd near the stage had already seen enough. Someone in the audience yelled, "She's live!" More people moved closer. Cole came back toward the stage entrance and looked at the crowd. "Turn that off," he said. Nobody did. The stream was now being shown on the large screen above the stage. One of the technicians had connected my phone feed to the display after someone from the audience asked him to. Everyone in the ballroom could see what I had been seeing. They saw Cole walking through the hallway. They saw him trying to reach the dressing rooms. They saw the staff members following him. The room went quiet. Then people started moving. Not running, just moving. A group of attendees and workers went behind the curtain. Security from the hotel arrived seconds later after someone called them. Cole tried to explain that there was a misunderstanding. I never heard the full conversation because security took him away from the stage area. The police arrived later that night. Mia woke up while medical workers were checking on her. I do not know every detail of what happened after that because the hotel staff kept everyone separated. The contest was canceled. The next morning, the ballroom looked completely different. The stage was still there, but the lights were off. There were pieces of tape on the floor where equipment had been placed. The smell of perfume was still hanging around the dressing rooms. I gave my footage to the investigators and wrote my article after confirming what I could. I avoided guessing about why Cole did what he did. I only reported what people saw and what was recorded. The strangest part was how close everyone came to accepting his version of events. A contestant was missing from the lineup, the schedule was changing, and most people in the audience would have gone home without knowing anything. A few days after the event, I received messages from people who had watched the stream. Some were audience members who had been there. Others were people who had found the video after it spread online. One person told me they had been sitting near the back of the ballroom and almost ignored the crowd moving toward the stage. They thought it was another part of the show. That was how normal everything looked from the outside. The hotel later removed the event materials from their website. The organizers stopped answering questions. Several contestants I had interviewed disappeared from social media for a while. I kept copies of the video because I did not trust that it would stay online. The original stream was removed, but enough people had saved it. A few months later, I saw a comment under a repost of the footage. Someone had written that they were glad the audience saw the screen before anyone could tell them what to believe. I thought about that comment when I remembered the first few minutes after the lights went out. Everyone was waiting for someone else to explain what was happening. Then the screen turned on. They saw him. Alright, that wraps things up for today. Thanks for watching, and tell me in the comments which 4chan story you liked best. Also, don't forget to check out the other vids on the channel. Catch you guys soon. Bye.